What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Life's a Garden. If you haven't yet, please do us a favor. Like, share, subscribe, follow on all platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, anywhere you find your podcasts, we are available there. Just give us a follow, give us a like, give us a share, whatever you can do to help grow this garden. We appreciate it so very much. And we are now post-election. I know in election time, tensions run high. Everybody has a side that they're on. And it can be a tumultuous time. You know, you think one thing is correct, the other person thinks the other thing is correct. And it's easy to get caught up in all the hubbub and all the chaos. This is right, this is wrong, he's a good guy, they're a bad guy, whatever. It's all the same shit every election cycle. And especially post-election, it can be very easy to become hostile or disappointed and to express those heavy emotions. Post, pre-post, all of it. Elections are very tense times. And for today's positive motivational message, I just want to send this out to all of you. Any of you out there that are politically inclined or have friends and family that are politically inclined, let them know politics are not everything. And beyond that, it's not just politics, religion, just any ideology that you have that might be controversial or might rub people the wrong way. First and foremost, don't be afraid to express the way you feel and to express whatever is, like I said, political ideology, religious ideology, whatever controversial thing there is, don't be afraid to let it known who you are. But at the same time, don't let it destroy your relationships. It's not worth that. In the end, I think most people gather around others that are of like mind. I think that just naturally happens. But I've got plenty of friends that we don't see eye to eye on certain things, very much politically and religious, and whatever the controversial take might be. At the end of the day, I find more things that I love about people that aren't political. So don't let politics dictate the people that you surround yourself with. Don't let it dictate whether you love or hate your family members. It's not worth it for that, because we go through this all the time. It's an up and down roller coaster. We've seen people in the red in the White House. We've seen people in blue. It's gonna change. It's gonna alternate all the time. If you're going to let that affect your family, your friends, and your personal relationships that you have with people, you're not going to live a very happy life. Don't let that be the only thing that... Have constructive debates, have constructive conversations, but don't let it destroy your friendships, your family. It's not worth it. And that's the whole point. And I know, like I said, post-election is a very tumultuous time. Just don't let it affect your relationships. And that is our positive motivational message today. So, let's go ahead and get into today's episode. It's episode 226 of Life's a Garden. American Badass! Welcome back to another episode of Life's a Garden. Thank you so much for joining. As I said at the top, it is a very divided, tumultuous time, especially post-election, and it does in fact suck anytime your team loses. Trust me. I'm a Broncos fan. I understand losing. I understand your team losing. But you know what's not sucky? You know what's sweeter than hell? When your team comes out on top. And guess what? We gotta crack us open a Hulk Hogan beer and give a nice big cheers to the United States of America because we won this year. It feels a little gross to me to actually even consider being a team. Like, I'm Team Republican, I'm Team Democrat. We're all one team, really. I understand we see things differently, but we're still all Americans. That's the team. We have to, if Kamala would have won, excuse me, don't want to misname her. If Kamala would have won, I would have been sitting here right now saying to you, I truly, truly hope that she guides us in the right direction. I pray for her success. I pray for because the success of the president is the success of America. If the president has a successful term in office, then we all prosper. You don't look at presidents that had bad presidencies and say, America was really thriving at that time. I'm not one to just sit here and be like, yes, I voted for Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the guy I wanted to win. And I could, there's many, many reasons why that is. There's a lot of reasons why I didn't want her to win. But if she had won, I promise you, I would be sitting here before you right now saying that I hope for the best and I hope things work out. Just like I would hope that anybody on the left who is just devastated by the fact that Trump is in the White House, yet again, historical deal here. This is the first time since Grover Cleveland that a president has been taken office on non-consecutive terms. And we'll get into more of the historic side of this here in a minute. But I would just hope that they would think the same way. That they would hope for the best. And not wish for his downfall. Because guess what? The downfall of the president is the downfall of the nation. And I understand it's hard, but that's not what it's about. When you consider yourself on a team, when you're like, well, my team lost, so fuck them, and I hope they just fucking crumble, and I hope that they really see what they got in store for them. Like, this is going to be the worst thing for America, and I hope that they see it come through. Well, you're just hoping for your own demise at that point. I would never think that if the opposite candidate that I was pulling for or voting for was in. I would hope that I was wrong about them. That's the way I look at it. And so, yes, my candidate won, and I hope to prove the other side wrong. I hope that I can sit here and say, look, this is the way I saw it. This is the way I hoped things would work out. And look, we're prosperous. It's working out. That's what I want. No matter who's in office, I just want the best for us all. Now, let's just get into the results here, okay? Again, this is a historic event. Again, he's the first time president to have non-consecutive terms since Grover Cleveland. It's only ever happened twice in the history of the United States. Let's just talk about the incredible comeback that this was for Donald Trump. Whether you agree or disagree, it's not really a fact of agreeing or disagreeing. It's a fact of truth. He was railroaded so many times, taken to court, convicted, and let's just clear the air here. He's not a felon. He was convicted of misdemeanors, 34 of them, I believe, and they were all basically the same thing. This has been a wild witch hunt this entire time to try and take him down. It's funny that they are the left is so concerned about him taking down his political opponents. What has the last 8 years been? Russiagate, uh, uh, stifling information and concealing information on social media. Literally, the FBI was telling Twitter and Facebook to suppress information about the election. We could go on and on and on about the suppressed information. But then you have the multiple trials and just constantly trying to take him down. And then you have an assassination attempt. Not one, but 2 assassination attempts. This guy's been through the goddamn ringer. And not only did he win, he won in a landslide. And I'm not using that term lightly. Landslide. In an election, a landslide is full and complete victory. First time he's won the popular vote. That was not, I did not foresee that whatsoever. All the polls had Kamala winning easily. He won every single battleground state. I think there were 6. He took out Georgia, South Carolina, Pennsylvania early. They said Pennsylvania was the road to victory. He took it out early. He even took Michigan and Wisconsin, which were not expected. And he's winning in Nevada and Arizona. All those were battleground states. Won them all. In addition, wins the popular vote. That's unbelievable. And the thing that's the most crazy to me is if you look at the media, if you look at the mainstream media, and we already know the mainstream media leans very left. Shit, if you looked on certain Facebook, anything, you would have been told that Kamala was on the road to victory. Same as it was when Hillary was running against Trump. All the polls were saying that she was, not all the polls, by the way, the polls that they were showing. It wasn't all the polls. I saw plenty of polls that had Trump winning. I think this just proves that polls are bullshit. But regardless of that, I think the temperature of the nation was that it was going to be a very close race. You know what I'm saying? I think that was kind of the gauge. That it was going to be a lot closer than what it was. And the fact that it was such a dominant victory, I think it speaks more to the fact that the majority of America is waking up to this left-wing ideology and how absolutely insane it is. It's not so much, I think, that people are voting for Donald Trump and think that Donald Trump is the guy. I think there's definitely a lot better things with Trump. I think he's going to surround himself way better this time around. He's already putting people in place that are way qualified, and just I'm excited to see what comes of this. More on that here in a second. But I think what's happened, when you look at the entire map, county by county, how extremely red it was. The blue spots were all the major metropolises. Austin, New York City, LA, Denver, it's all the major cities that were going blue, which is pretty typical. But when you had Obama running, when you had, even when Biden ran the last time, and there's a lot of sketchy shit with that still, especially when you look at the total numbers, it gets a little interesting. But even then, they were able to sway rural counties. This time around, it's basically all red. All the rural counties, all the major counties that the Democratic Party was banking on, that were rural counties that usually go blue, went red. He not only won all the counties, he increased his percentage with black voters, young female voters, young voters for that matter, Hispanic voters. They thought the Hispanic vote was going to plummet. It's the best he's done with Hispanic voters in all 3 times he's ran. Same with the black vote. Same with the young vote. These are all categories that the left bank on to be their constituents. And I don't think it's a pro-Trump movement. I think it's an anti-left movement. I think that the absolute insanity that the left has leaned on is finally sticking to the American public. And like I said, you look at the media sites, you look at all that, and they would tell you, like, this will never happen. Trump will never be back in the White House, and all this, that, and the other. And I'm sitting here as just an average American, and I'm listening to all the policies. I'm listening to whatever outlets I can get my hands on, whether it be TikTok, Facebook, natural media, podcasts, whatever I can get my hands on, I'm listening to it. And I, being just, I mean, like I said before, I've said this many a times, I identify as an independent, so I try to listen to both sides. I voted for Obama both times that he ran. I didn't vote for Trump either time he ran. This time was different. I voted for Donald Trump this time. The two other times, I didn't vote for him. I didn't vote for Hillary or Biden, I think. I think I voted for an independent candidate, or I just put a write-in because I was so split that I couldn't even decide. I was mostly voting for my local government. But this time around was different. And it's not because I'm a huge Trump supporter. It's because what I've been seeing on the left has concerned me beyond belief. The censorship, the anti-First Amendment movements, just the lack of democracy. They're the Democratic Party, and they're the least democratic of all. Say what you will about Trump being the antichrist to democracy. It ain't true. But you see all these different things, and you'd be led to believe that she was just this next coming of Christ. She was going to be the savior of America. And even with all that, America saw through it. And I looked at myself and thought, am I fucking crazy? Am I crazy to think that he's the better candidate? That he's the one to give us the right direction? Not just him as a leader, as a president, but I like J.D. Vance. I like Vivek Ramaswamy, or whatever, however you pronounce his last name. I think that's how it's Ramaswamy. Vivek. I like Vivek. I like John F. Kennedy Jr., who is a lifelong Democrat. I like Tulsi Gabbard, another lifelong Democrat, who are now on Donald Trump's side. That speaks a lot. That speaks a lot to the fact that he's willing to have them as a part of his cabinet. I believe Tulsi Gabbard, Robert Kennedy Jr., and Vivek, who's a Republican, but all these guys are part of his cabinet. I think they're talking about them being part of the cabinet. That's huge. That's the most bipartisan movement we've seen from a president in a very long time. And it should concern people on the left that people like Robert Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, lifelong Democrats, see what's going on in the left-wing party and decide to become independent, basically, which is pretty much what happened to me. And then they're siding with Donald Trump. And of course, the second they leave the Democratic Party, these are people that supported them forever. The second they decide, we can't have this anymore, it's too much, this is getting out of control. Tulsi Gabbard was labeled a Russian asset. She fought for our country in the United States military, and they called her a Russian asset. They called Robert Kennedy Jr. a quack and a vaccine denier, which isn't true, by the way. Whatever you may have heard about Robert Kennedy Jr., the fact him being called an anti-vaxxer is not true. But they label these guys, and they try and railroad them and make them look like enemies. This is what they do. They attack their political opponents, just like they say Donald Trump does. That's concerning to me. You're going to attack the people that were once part of you, and because they defected, because they think that what you're doing is wrong and incorrect, now they're the enemy, and you're going to call them crazy and terrorists and whatever you have. Unbelievable. I don't like that. But the fact that he's willing to have them part of his cabinet and part of his movement, and the fact that they're willing to be part of his movement, says so much. So like I said, it's not a Trump thing for me. It's the entire thing. Now, I understand, and here's the thing, like we had this immense red wave across America. The Republicans took the Senate. They're most likely going to take the House. They have the Supreme Court. So they're going to get what they want done. They're going to be unchecked, basically. For anybody out there that, because the number one thing I've seen, is, well, great for all of you Trump supporters and everybody who voted for him that, you clearly don't care about your daughters or your sisters or your mothers or your blah, blah, blah. You don't care about the women in your life because now they're effectively going to get rid of abortion. I can't sit here and tell you that that's not going to happen. The fact that they control the House, the Senate, the presidency, and the judiciary branch, yeah. I can't tell you what's going to happen with abortion nationally. I can tell you this. The state of Montana went all red. Pretty much, our governors went red, Senate went red, House went red, all in the state of Montana. And yet they still voted to pass the abortion law as where abortion is legal to a certain extent. Whatever, I can't remember how the exact law was written, but they approved that abortion would not be banned in the state of Montana. It almost passed in the state of Florida. It was you have to get a 60% vote in the state of Florida, which is stupid. If it's still a majority, it should still pass. It was a 57% in favor of the abortion not being banned in a red state that voted for Trump. I don't know about all the other ones. Those were the only ones I saw, to be honest. That should be very encouraging. The fact that, and I think that speaks true to what the Republican Party, or what people who identify as the Republican Party. I can't speak for the actual Republican Party and what they stand for, because I think it's pretty clear what the core Republican Party stands for when it comes to abortion. But the people, the public, the citizens of America have basically made it clear that we want to move in this direction. We want to be we're voting Republican, but we are not in favor of an abortion ban. And that's exactly the way I voted. And I think most of America agrees. So that should be encouraging for people on the left. Of course, they're not going to write about it that way. They're not going to look at it that way. And this idea that, I agree. I think an abortion ban is anti-American. If you're somebody on the right that says, well, what the fuck? Why would you think that? Like, that's insane. You're the same people that were complaining and bitching about the vaccine and, well, I shouldn't have to take the vaccine because I want bodily autonomy. Yeah, understandable. You can't sit here and say, I'm pro-abortion and I'm pro-abortion and pro-mandating vaccines. And vice versa. You can't say I'm anti-abortion, but you can't tell me that I have to take a vaccine. You're basically contradicting yourself. If you want bodily autonomy, it has to be clear across the board. And I am for bodily autonomy. I think you should have control of what you do with your body. To a certain extent. To a certain age. Like, I don't agree that a 10-year-old can sit here and say that I'm a girl, I'm going to chop my dick off. No, because if you're 10 years old, you can't just walk into a tattoo parlor and get a fucking tattoo. Why should you be able to get breast implants and hormones injected? I don't agree with that either. Just like you can't smoke cigarettes until 18, or you're not, the law says so. You can't drink beer until you're 21. There's certain rules to this stuff. But anyway, that's what I think happened. I think people saw through this left-wing rhetoric. They saw that they installed this person who was clearly not qualified. Every time she was asked a question about what are you going to do about the economy, her answer would be the same thing. I was raised in a middle-class family, and this, and this. I understand the plight of the poor. I understand the plight of the middle class. I get, this, that, and the other. It's like, okay, great. I love that you can sympathize. What are you gonna do about it? She had no fucking plan, and no fault to her own. They thrusted her into this position with 100 and some days, and they thought it was just gonna work. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that they were just like changing the rules as they went. And I think people saw through that. I think people saw what was happening. You get guys like, listen, I also want to point this out. I think the strategy of the Trump campaign was immensely genius for involving the podcast world. Rather than going, what Kamala did, she went on all the major news networks, CBS, NBC, did all those, like 60 Minutes, did all those interviews, which are compressed into a 10-minute segment at most. It's edited down. You get pre-questions, all this bullshit. It's so constructed. She goes on Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon and blah, blah, blah. That ain't shit. You get 5 minutes worth of material out of them. That's all premeditated. She went on one podcast, and it was Call Her Daddy, which is one of the most popular podcasts. I will give her credit there. It was not smart to go on that podcast. But the podcast, Call Her Daddy, like the genre of that is sex, relationships. Like, it's such a random podcast to be a part of. You got guys like Joe Rogan, who involved himself in the Trump, like, he had Trump on, he had JD Vance on. It did huge numbers. He's the number one podcast in the world. You had Theo Vaughn, who Trump went on, and JD Vance. Number 10 podcast in the world. Trump did sports podcasts. He was with Bussin' with the Boys. He did the Undertaker's podcast. He did financial podcasts like or maybe it's not financial, but what's the guy's name? God, I'm blanking here. He also did Andrew Schultz podcast. He did all these different podcasts to reach a different audience. And then in those settings, you really get to know a person. It's not, and they have time to explain their positions and explain their stance on certain things. Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn, again, 2 of the top 10 podcasts in America. In addition, heavy male audience. Male demographic would have been huge for her to try and win over. And they both offered them time to come on the show, to which they either refused or had crazy demands on whether for her to come on. I think with Joe Rogan, they said it had to be 45 minutes, it had to be edited, and he had to go to her. And he's like, no, that's not what I do here. Joe Rogan does not need her on his podcast for him to be successful. She needed to go on his podcast to be successful for her. Her going on there would have changed, I don't know if it would have changed the results of the election, but it might have made a difference. You never know. I can tell you right now, Trump's plan to go on all these podcasts, especially Joe Rogan, made an incredible difference in this election, especially among young male listeners. And I think you're going to see this. You're going to see in the next election cycle, it's going to change the entire game. They're going to look at what happened this time, and they're going to recognize it, and they're going to be begging to go on Joe Rogan. Both sides of the party. It has changed the entire landscape. the podcast world. And I said it from day one. I said it last election cycle that they should be going on these podcasts. Nobody did it. This time around, you see what happened when they did. I don't think they're going to, like, they deserve so much credit for that move of trying to go on, for going on all these podcasts and getting this young male demographic. Just a young audience in general. Joe Rogan's the number one podcast in the world. He gets more views than CNN, NBC, MSNBC, all these fucking ABC. He gets more than all of them combined. Why would you not take advantage of that? In addition, you got the endorsement of Elon Musk on the Trump side. The only reason anybody has a problem with Elon Musk is because he's voting for Trump. Whenever you talk to somebody who hates Elon Musk, they're a Democrat. Like, you find that out. Whenever you're having a discussion with somebody and you don't realize their politics, and they say they don't like Elon Musk, ask their politics, guarantee you they're a Democrat. They vote left. That's the only reason they don't like this guy. The guy is changing the game when it comes to space. He's the fact that Democrats don't like him, he's the one who's pushing for electronic vehicles. Is that not what they've been asking for years? And he's at the forefront of it? But he's the bad guy. This guy's our modern day genius. I think he understands a lot of shit really well. The fact that he looked at America, he bought Twitter knowing he was going to lose profit on it because he understood the impact it had on the First Amendment. And he proved that the NSA and the FBI were involving themselves in Twitter to stifle information in the election. They committed election fraud to try and not get Trump in. The fact that he bought Twitter may have also changed this election. You never know, really, because look what it did last election. So the fact that he understands the importance of the First Amendment, the fact that he was willing to take a huge loss for that. And then you got all these people who are like, well, no wonder, like, duh, of course he's voting for Trump. He's a billionaire. He's trying to save his billions of dollars. He wants tax cuts. He wants all this blah, blah, blah. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the people that have endorsed Kamala. Let's look at all the people that endorsed her, okay? Taylor Swift, Beyonce, Mark Cuban, Bill Gates. Then you get guys like Leonardo DiCaprio and George Clooney, Oprah Winfrey. These are all people that endorsed Kamala. You look on the other side. Let's look at the people that endorsed Trump. Elon Musk, Joe Rogan, Dave Portnoy, Dana White, Hulk Hogan, Nick Bosa. These are some of the bigger names that came out and supported Trump. And Theo Vaughn. We could say Theo Vaughn. We could say, so Dana White is the CEO of the UFC. Dave Portnoy is the president of Barstool Sports. These are guys that have high-ranking positions, right? They're CEOs and presidents of companies. Every single name I told you on the left, with the exception of George Clooney and Leonardo DiCaprio, are all billionaires. The only person on the side that on the Trump side that is a billionaire is Elon Musk. He's the richest man in the world, or at least, whatever, based on what we know. He's definitely not the richest man, but whatever. He's very, very, very fucking rich. He's the only one. Beyonce has more money than fucking Dave Portnoy and Dana White. She's a billionaire. Taylor Swift, billionaire. They're all billionaires. And they're voting for Kamala. So you look at me and tell me that anybody who votes for Trump is looking to get tax cuts, but then all these billionaires are pulling for Kamala. You can't tell me that they're sitting here like, please take my money. Don't give me any tax cuts. I'll pay as much money as I humanly possible. Fuck off. That ain't fucking happening. You look at that shit and you tell me that that's how it is. You're wrong. This bullshit about the tax cuts for the rich, it's incorrect. It ain't happening. You got millionaires and billionaires on both sides feeding all this fucking money. You know how much money went into the Kamala Harris campaign in the state of Pennsylvania? $1 billion. $1 billion went from the Harris campaign to advertise and to promote in the state of Pennsylvania. And they lost. So I think I saw a statistic that said the Harris campaign spent $9 to every one that Trump did for the whole entire campaign, and she lost. And you're telling me that they're not spending money unwisely? That they give a flying fuck about the middle class? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? They don't give a fuck about money. Oh, they do. They care about lining their pockets with it, just like a lot of them. I'm not sitting here saying that Trump isn't shisty and greedy and shit. Like, I can't sit here and tell you that he's not gonna give tax breaks to the rich. You know who's gonna like that? Taylor Swift and Oprah. Come on, fuck off with this shit. It's just it's like you look at something and you're like, it's clearly this way. Like, it just Occam's razor, dude. You look at something, you're like, it's that way. Like, that's what makes sense. That's what I look at this, I'm like, that's what makes sense. And then you got somebody looking at you and saying, oh, you're completely wrong. And it's like, are we looking at the same thing? Are we living in the same world? What do you mean? You got all these fucking billionaires pulling for her. That doesn't add up to me. What are we talking about here? For real. And then you get people that are like, well, if you don't want to be on the right side of history, it's like, dude, history hasn't been written yet. You want to talk about, well, you're not going to be on the right side of history. Maybe. I guess we'll find out. We got 4 years to figure that shit out. Guess we'll wait and see. And if what? If we end up being, if I end up being on the right side of history, what are you going to say? Oh, you're going to make some bullshit excuse up. That's the other thing I can't stand is now all the excuses roll out. Why did she lose? Well, this, and this. You know, all these fucking excuses. You can't fucking explain away a landslide. I'll tell you, whatever excuse you think you have, because they were trying to use the Tony Hinchcliffe thing against him, like, they're racist. That's the other thing that fucking drives me crazy, dude. And I apologize. Listen, I apologize for rambling on about the politics stuff. It's the biggest thing going on right now, and I had to give the fallout of the election, the American fallout. I had to at least bring it up. We'll move on here in just a second, but this whole rhetoric that if you voted for Trump, you're a racist, misogynist piece of shit. Fuck you. Like, you don't know anything about me, dude. If you just assume because I voted for Trump that I'm a racist and a sexist and a bigot and a Nazi and a blah and a blah, fuck you. You know what the problem with you is? You are the ones that are the racist because you're making all these assumptions about who I am. That's exactly the opposite of what you preach. Don't judge a book by their cover. But you're doing that right away. I hate that shit. That's bullshit. I didn't vote for him for any other reason than what I believe to be the correct thing to do. You're on the wrong side of history. We'll find out. And like I said, all these excuses come out now as to why you wouldn't have had all these excuses if they would have won. You can't explain a landslide. Like I said, if you're at all fucking curious, okay, why the Democrats lost, if you're a Democrat listening to this and saying, Well, there's all these excuses. No, there's no excuse. Here's your fucking excuse. Their policies and their ideology fucking suck. And people don't agree with it. The people that agree with it, they're what, it's all ideological. It's all like emotional shit where it's like, well, I care about people. I fucking care about people too. If you don't vote for Democrats, you don't care about people. Not true. Not true at all. I care about the American people. That's what I care about. Yeah, it's all posturing. It's all peacocking. For people that most of the people that vote Democrat, it's not even because they really believe in the policies. They don't even know what the fucking policies are. So there's my rant. I'm fucking done with it. We've reached the end of it. No more junk mail. No more spam calls. I've been so relieved to be watching YouTube and not see a single John Tester ad. I will admit, I'm a little surprised that Tim Sheehy did win. I didn't vote for Sheehy. I voted for Tester. Just saying. So call me a fucking right-wing conservative piece of shit racist. Bleh. You know what I am? I'm a Hulk Hogan beer drinking real American. That's what the fuck I am. Now, let's get on to a couple other things, because I don't want to make this all a political episode. I guess I will kind of move into this. It's a little political, not really. The Jason Kelce thing, okay? So, Jason Kelce got in trouble for some guy was walking behind him, filming him, talking shit, called his brother a F-word. And then Jason Kelce turned around, smashed his phone, and said the same gay slur back to him. And then he had to publicly apologize. No, that's fair, because you are a public figure. I understand you shouldn't behave in a way that's unbecoming of yourself and your brand. I understand that you don't want to act like push violence with violence. I get that. Here's the thing. I like what Jason Kelce did. And I agree with what Jason Kelce did, because you shouldn't get to just talk shit to somebody's face and have zero repercussions. That's freedom of speech, brother. You want to talk shit? He didn't harm the guy. I'm not promoting violence. I'm not saying he should have beat the shit out of the guy. But yeah, break the dude's fucking phone, flip him off, and tell him, dude, fuck you. And show this dude, I'm an NFL lineman. You don't just come up to me and talk shit. Like, shit could go down real fucking fast. This internet society has made the world such, like, they think that they're invincible. Like, you can just talk shit to anybody about anybody and say whatever you want and get away with it. I like when people get their just desserts. When somebody's trying to talk shit and somebody's like, excuse me? You talking to me? Well, buddy, let's go ahead and step outside for a minute. And then, no. Yeah, exactly. You don't get to just talk shit to whoever you want and think you can get away with it. We need to get back to I'm not even fucking kidding you. I'm not a fan of bullies. I'm not a bully guy. We need to get back to some fucking... Can we become a country of just respectful Americans? Like, if you want to come up and talk shit and think that I'm not going to do something about it because I have my rights. Yeah, sure you do. But I'm not just going to sit here and let you talk shit. Like, you need to understand there are limits to this. And that's the other thing. We need to become a respectful society again, because if you want to talk shit, then it can be followed with some fucking physical violence, depending on what you say. Like I said, I'm not advocating violence, but I don't think you should just be able to say whatever you want. Now, that's kind of contradictory in itself, because I am a huge advocate for freedom of speech. But then you got the left that are like, punch Nazis. I mean, I'm not against that either. If you're a real Nazi, if you're a real white supremacist, yeah, you have the right to believe what you want in this country. You also have the right to get your fucking shit rocked. Just saying. If you say something, I mean, that's where we toe the line, though. You know, it does get to be it gets to be a real foggy area sometimes, because then we start having that debate of, what do you deem to be offensive? Well, if I'm offended by your shirt, I shouldn't get the right to just beat the shit out of you because you chose to wear a certain shirt or a certain hat. That doesn't give me the right to beat you up. I do have the right to voice my opinion, and depending on how that interaction goes, see, that's just the thing. Just be respectful. If you want to have a disagreeing, respectful argument with somebody, fine. The second it goes out of line and starts getting disrespectful and starts getting hostile, yeah, that's a different story. Just saying. But the bigger news, the Jason Kelce thing was just a little note that I wanted to come out with, because I wanted to talk about, mostly because I agree with the fact that he retaliated. Especially when you're a celebrity like that, you know, you're super like protected or not protected, but you're like guarded by like, I can't really do and say a whole lot of stuff or else I'll get in trouble because I'm in the limelight and I'm this fucking I'm a example to young kids, or I'm an example to this and that. Yeah, the young kids should know you don't get to just get fucked with and then nothing happens to the person trying to fuck with you. Like, if you're going out of your way to try and provoke somebody, okay, then yeah, let's fucking roll. That's where I'm at. But anyway, the bigger news. Almost might even be the bigger news other than the election. It's the biggest news besides the election, to be honest. Peanut the Squirrel. We got to talk about Peanut the Squirrel. He's the new Harambe. And we got to also throw in the raccoon. Okay, so if you're not aware of the story, which you should be by now, like I said, it's the new Harambe. This couple, I can't remember their name. Longo was the last name. I think it's no, her name is Daniela Longo, and I can't remember his name. Matt Longo. Anyway, this internet couple, TikTok couple, whatever, they had this squirrel that they rescued. It was a wild squirrel. Its mom died, and then they took in the baby, nursed it back to health. Apparently these guys have a lot of animals, like horses, and they kind of have, I wouldn't call it an animal sanctuary, but they're not like, they like animals, right? And they supposedly must have taken in this raccoon too. I don't know a whole lot about the raccoon. But somebody called the authorities on these guys. Like, they've made money on TikTok with the squirrel, and like, you know, the squirrel obviously became domesticated over time. You bring it into the house and you feed it and you treat it like a pet, and it becomes domesticated. Well, somebody called, this is in the state of New York, I believe. Somebody called on these people and said, like, I don't know what they said. They basically snitched these people out about owning these pets. The authorities show up, raid their house, turn the house upside down, find the two animals, and euthanize them. No excuse as to why. They said because they thought they had rabies. Well, guess what? They're domesticated fucking animals. You come in and grab a dog and you assume it's a domesticated dog and you assume it has rabies? No, of course not. But you see what is depicted as a wild animal, like a squirrel or a raccoon, who's been domesticated. I'm sure these people, like, it lives with these people. If it's a rabid animal, it's not going to be fucking living there much longer. So that was a bullshit excuse. Now, of course, this being in the state of New York, this is what cracks me the motherfucking up. Okay? You got a left-leaning state who are pro-animal, pro-nature, like, you know, you think about you think about the typical liberal and you think vegan or like pro-environment, pro-nature. Well, their government just walked into somebody's home and executed 2 of their animals. And here's my thing. I mean, the state of Texas, you can own a fucking giraffe in the state of Texas. You can have a zebra. You can have a lion. There's no laws against what animal you own. I understand, like, the exotic animal thing can get kind of crazy. And I don't agree that you should be able to own, like, endangered species. But if you can and then, you get in a little bit of trouble here. You get into a gray area again where, you don't want a predatory cat just roaming around the backyard of some neighborhood. But if precautions are taken, I think you should be able to own whatever animal you want, really. If it's a domesticated animal, why not? Now, here's the thing. There are extenuating circumstances to this. I don't think you should be able to just own a bald eagle. I don't think you should be able to own, like I said, domesticated animal. A endangered animal. I don't think you should be able to own an endangered animal. Or even like what I would consider to be an exotic animal. I wouldn't consider a squirrel to be exotic. Like, if I went out... Do you know how many fucking rabbits are running around my house right now? If I scooped one of them motherfuckers up, brought it in this house, and made it my pet, I don't think morally there's anything right with that. I don't think you should do that. But I also don't think that there's necessarily anything wrong with that, because think about this. Think about how many fucking squirrels you see flattened in the road. Think about how many rabbits you see cats killing, or how many deer get hit by cars. If you were to take in a deer and make it your pet, I don't have any fucking problem with that whatsoever. Because it's you see them everywhere. They're all over the place. I'd rather have a squirrel living fat and happy in somebody's house than getting his ass ran over or chased by cats all day. And you'd think most people would agree, but apparently not. They thought this was a disgusting thing that this guy was doing. I mean, the government clearly thought so. They were like, well, fuck this guy. We can't let him own a squirrel. We gotta go and kill that motherfucker. Makes no sense to me at all. Peanut was his name. Peanut the squirrel. And they had a TikTok account, and they apparently must have made a lot of money with Peanut the squirrel. And I can't remember the raccoon's name, but he made content as well. I've always thought raccoons were cool animals. I've always thought raccoons were like just a great animal to have as a pet. Because they use their little hands, they're cute little fuckers. You domesticate one, they can be mean as shit too. But if you domesticate it properly, fuck, I think they'd be cool pets. It's infuriating to know that this happened. And he's being praised like a Harambe figure now. And it's what we need. And that's the other thing too, is they kind of dubbed Peanut the mascot of the Conservative Party just right before the election. And it's like, then of course the left is like getting upset about that too. And it's like, well, you are usually the ones that are anti-cop and you're pro-animal. And this goes against both of those things. So what the fuck are you? Like, you just mold yourself to whatever fits the narrative at that time. But regardless, the other layer to this thing is, as all this was unfolding, as like the story was coming out, and as they're figuring things out about these people and these animals, turns out this guy and this girl have an OnlyFans as well. So that all that information comes out as also. So it's like, I hear that and I'm like, well, now I gotta dig a little deeper. Listen. I'm an investigative journalist here on this podcast. So you tell me a TikTok famous couple with a squirrel at OnlyFans, I gotta investigate. I gotta check it out. So I go on the hunt to try and find this OnlyFans. Couldn't find it, to be honest with you. Didn't find anything. But I did see some pictures of this dude's wife. Daniela Longo, I think is her name. And let me tell you something. My God. My God! She's got like that platinum blonde hair. She's tattooed from fucking chin to shin. I saw some, like, no nudes. I didn't see any nudes. I just saw some, like, nice modeling photos of this girl. And the hunt continues for that OnlyFans. Because let me tell you something. As sad as I was about Peanut, when I saw that picture of her, the only Peanut I was thinking about was peeing some nut out of my wiener. That was the only thing coming to my mind. I was crying tears for Peanut the squirrel. And then I saw his owner, and the only tears I wanted to cry were wiener tears. Them tears from the tip of my ween. I'm R.I.P. Peanut. R.I.P. Peanut. But my God, I need to get a hold of that OnlyFans because the dude's not bad looking either. I'll say that as a straight guy. I will be completely open and honest with you. The guy doesn't look too shabby. So ladies, don't be looking at me like I'm some sick fuck. Oh, Peanut. Yeah. But R.I.P. Peanut. We are very sad about this. And it is not, I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy that these the law enforcement just walked into these people's house and killed their pets. You should be able to own a pet. Especially if you've had it for 7 years. Come on. There should be there's a statute of limitation against rape, but not for owning a pet off the street. They had this guy for 7 years. That's fucked up. Clearly you've proven that you are taking care of the pet, of the animal. The animal's well taken care of. And he's acting and behaving like a pet. It'd be no different than if you walked into somebody's house and killed their fucking cat. I just don't get it. It's very off-putting. All right, guys. Thank you so very much for joining me. I do appreciate it very much. I gotta get going. It's Friday night as of the recording of this, and I'm ready to go down to my favorite bar. Now, let me tell you something real quick. I'll end with this. So, you already know, because I've mentioned it many, many, many times here on the show. Hooligan Sports Bar it's my bar. That's the place I go. That's the place I hang out. At first, it was more like a place that I enjoyed hanging out. I really liked I'd go there maybe once or twice a week. And now, it's definitely more like 3 to 4 times a week. Between there and Crystal. Okay? The Crystal and I'm not somebody that necessarily loves... I'm 50-50. I like familiarity, but I also like to venture out and kind of check out new shit. Like, I'd like to go to a different bar and hang out and check it out. The only way I'm gonna do that anymore is if I'm with somebody else. Like, if somebody else is like, hey, let's go check out this bar. Or, hey, you want to hang out tonight? And it's like, yeah, let's go hang out at somewhere I haven't hung out in a long time. That's cool, because I'm with somebody I know. If I want to just go hang out by myself, Hooligans or the Crystal is where I go. And I realized this week, Hooligans is my Cheers. Because I walk into, or you could say the Crystal is my Cheers too. I walk into either of those bars, and a place where everyone... No, wait, how's the song? A place where everybody knows your name. It's Cheers. All the bartenders know me. All the managers know me. Half the fucking clientele knows me. The chances of me walking into any of those bars and sitting at the bar top and running into somebody I know 9 times out of 10. So if I want to just go out and hang out and party or just go out for the night, it's one of those places because I know I'm going to have company. I have my own Cheers bar now. In addition to that, guess what, guys? I've become a nap guy. So not only am I regular, like I'm that guy now that goes to like the same bar and that's where everybody knows who I am. I'm a nap guy now. I turned 30 years old last year and felt like I was still 25. Like I was like this, I'm still youthful, I'm still this. Turned 31 and I'm 40. I need naps in the middle of the day and I'm a regular in the bars. I'm 40. So that's probably why I voted Republican this year because that's where I'm at in my life. All right, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you so very much. As always, please like, share, subscribe, follow on all platforms. I really do appreciate it. Again, don't let the politics get in the way. I understand you're going to have disputes. You're going to have arguments. Just be civil about it. Don't let it ruin your relationships. Don't let it ruin your family, your friends. Have civil discussions. You know, it's important to do that as well. But don't let it ruin your lives. It's not worth it, for real. And guess what? Ultimately, here's the real message. It's all going to be okay. It will all be okay. We've been through this before. And we stand strong. Cheers, America. You deserve it. And don't forget, life's a garden. Dig it. Just gotta keep on keeping on.
Why don't you talk in the microphone? I got a back right here. Back of my. Life's a garden, dig it.